I see a Budweiser. Go ahead and hold it up.
Yes. There's
that was the biggest clue.
Yes, right
Doing
there.
it for Dale.
Man, it's so many gimmicks, right? I feel like they're making it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, a lot of people, you get polarizing opinions on DRS.
I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but sometimes the effort, it's all about the boys. You know, like, hey, you know, life sucks sometimes, and you need the boys.
iRacing kind of always has a tendency to kind of buff
Yes.
the new cars just a little bit. I'm not going to go on record saying it's because they want people to spend money on their platform and buy all the new content.
Confirmed.
But
Yes.
but
Here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, we are all about community. So when an anonymous sponsor for the Weekend Warriors, Formula Vee, sent us a message asking for assistance in doing a fundraiser, we were happy to jump on board. On Wednesday the 16th of October, we took to Road Atlanta for an exciting multi-class charity race, helping to raise funds for the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation. Drivers had the choice between the very nimble Formula Vee, the lively Formula Ford, and my personal favourite, the Spec Racer Ford. Complete with custom liveries specific to this event, a field of 23 cars took part in this 40-minute race. It was very much a team effort, so we thank all of those who played a role in making this come together. Between us so far, we have raised $321 for this fantastic cause. Together, we can ensure that Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation can continue to save lives by meeting the most critical needs of our communities and investing in breakthrough research to prevent and cure breast cancer. To donate, head on over to the web link below or scan the QR code. Thank you very much for your support.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors. This is round number 7 of the season, coming to you today from Summit Point. My name is Maunz, and alongside me, working the comms and the cams, is Joshua Wilkie. And now, Josh, in these old school race cars, we're running at an old school track. It should be a match made in heaven, but I'm not entirely convinced. This is a racetrack that a lot of iRacers have visited at some point in their iRacing career. It is a staple of Rookie to C-Class series, and Formula V's being no exception. But I have a feeling, considering that a lot of these drivers probably know this racetrack like at the back of their hands, they may overstep the limit at some point, so I'm not entirely convinced that that match made in heaven idea is going to transverse too well into this race. What are your thoughts heading into it?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, Ron. This track is it's a club circuit in real life as well, so pretty grassroots, and it's the same thing in iRacing. You're going to hit this track earlier in your career. You're probably going to hit it multiple times. So everybody out there knows exactly what this track has to offer and how it's going to take it away from you pretty quickly as well. It's built really well for these cars as well. It's a perfect track for the V's, it being grassroots, and it's kind of tight and small. Some of the bigger cars can actually be a little bit too fast for this place, but the V is just perfect, and it's got a nice big long back straight as well, or front straight, sorry, as well for some drafting. So I think we should see some pretty good racing out of the V's today.
I think we certainly will. That front straight is a really good point that you bring up, because these Formula V's are pretty draft-heavy race cars, so heading down into turn number 1 towards the end of this race, gonna see some drivers maybe push that envelope just a little bit. So only time will tell what this upcoming race that we have is going to result in. But I'll tell you what, already 6 races on the board throughout this season. It has been a brilliant season up to this point, with some fantastic racetracks that we have visited: Alton Park, VIR, Mid-Ohio, Navarre, for Oschersleben, followed by Rudskogen 1 week ago, running at Summit Point tonight. And we're going to bring this season to a close with the final 6 races of the season at Zandvoort, Indianapolis, Lime Rock Park, Lebanon in France, Laguna Seca, and Okayama to bring this season to a close. We've got an awesome schedule of races to look forward to, and this is going to be a whole lot of fun. And you know, on the subject of some drivers having fun, you can see some battling in this practice session that we're in the midst of, nearly 3 wide coming out of turn number 1. I don't think so, gents. As we're seeing these drivers bring this practice session to a close, I think we'll possibly take a look at the championship points, because it's been a pretty compelling championship fight to look at in some of these classes. Thortulo, who we're following right now, has been pretty dominant thus far this season, going to try and stay claim on a championship. However, he's been a little bit inconsistent at times, which is part of the reason why he doesn't have a huge lead in the Formula Vee Spec 1 standings. I say that, though, it's still, 50 points between himself and Jason Green in second. So Thortulo definitely trying to stake his claim on this season's championship. Got Guido Marzuki only 10 points behind Green, though, so that could create quite a compelling fight between now and the end of the season. Then you have to go about 100 points back to Jim Brewster. Those 3 drivers have really been the ones to keep our eyes on throughout this Spec 1 season. And look at Stefan Heemskerk running there in 6th. He's currently at the top of this practice session, 6th in the championship standings. He was not in Spec 2 to begin this season, switched over to Spec 1 a couple of races ago at Oschersleben, but in that very brief period of time, he has put on a clinic. So the Dutchman in the number 96 car maybe going to be a driver that we need to keep our eyes on throughout this season, possibly playing spoilers to Tulo's championship hopes, but also going to be a driver we definitely have to keep our eyes on come time for Season 1 of 2025 here from the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors. So that's how things look in the Spec 1 category. Moving over to Spec 2, it's been a little bit more up in the air with some drivers swapping over. Adam Thompson was pretty dominant in the early stages, then Stefan Heemskerk was a dominant one after Thompson moved to Spec 1. Here in Spec 2, though, mega close. You got Michael Lattarulo at the front in the 826 car. He's currently at 323 points on the board. Only have to subtract 11 to go to Jason Greider right behind him, P2, and Gary Wolbold a little bit farther back. He is in 3rd at the moment. Matthias Marin and David Fitzgerald running at your top 5 as it stands at the moment in the Spec 2 standings. And this is also going to be I wouldn't say a historic race. It's going to be a moment for this season for sure, because halfway through this 30-minute race that we have coming up will officially mark the halfway mark of this 13-race calendar that we have to look forward to here from this season. But looking at those championship fights, Spec 2 being really interesting. Josh, you're a Spec 2 driver in some of the other Weekend Warriors series, so I want to ask you how it is being in those Spec 2 championship fights where you're battling with some Spec 1 drivers as well, occasionally battling for some very good positions overall. Those fights are usually the most interesting in my book.
Yeah, that's a pretty good question, actually, Ron. It is, kind of unique to this league, actually, that you're out there racing 2 different classes, and the points do matter. So if you pass that guy in Pro, you're going to get some more points for S2, or vice versa. The guy in Pro sometimes out there just really doesn't want an S2 guy in front of him either. I have definitely experienced that, especially when you're early in the season and people don't really know your pace yet. And they're like, who is this Spec 2 guy trying to get by me right now? And it can be a little bit difficult from time to time, but that being said, the points do matter. So when you do get in front of that Pro guy, it is going to bag you some more points for the S2 season as well. So there is a bit of a dichotomy out there between them, and you really do have to keep that in your head while you're out there as a Pro and as an S2 to kind of just play ball with everybody.
And another thing to note as well when it comes to that Spec 1, Spec 2 interclass dynamic, here with the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors, you usually see a bit more of that interclass mingling just based off how odd, shall I say, these race cars are to drive. It's a car which very much reminds me of my old karting days, where you just have to carry as much momentum as you possibly can heading through the corners. It's a momentum-based game, and around a racetrack like this, really important to try and carry that momentum. I think we're probably going to be doing a track guide in the qualifying session, which is set to begin in the not-too-distant future. But with this series, you can occasionally see a bit more interclass battling. We saw 2 weeks ago at Oschersleben, for that matter. I nearly said Rudskogen, that was a race 1 week ago. But at Oschersleben 2 weeks ago, we saw Thortulo win as a Spec 1 racer, winning it overall. And then right behind him, P2 overall, was the Spec 2 winner of Parvinder Ladar. So we could occasionally see some stuff like that, but occasionally things will be a bit more broken up. It's really a case-by-case basis, depending on what sort of racetrack that we're running at. Certainly 1 week ago at Oschersleben, Thor Tulo was victorious, but was victorious in the Spec 1 category. However, Brian Szynski in the Spec 2 class finished as the Spec 2 winner, albeit all the way down in P9 overall. So really a case-by-case basis about how these Spec 1 and Spec 2 drivers are going to be in terms of pace to each other. And looking at this practice, looking at the practice sheet right now, Josh, looking like we're getting a bit more of that Spec 1, Spec 2 intermingling than we saw at Grudskogen 1 week ago.
Yeah, I think, well, as you mentioned earlier there, we're kind of halfway through the season now. People are getting the grips of the car. We're sort of getting our group of base drivers and stuff like that are going to be here, and they're really coming to grips with the vehicle. So you're going to hopefully start seeing some of those S2 guys pick up some speed and make their way up to S1, as hopefully I will for next season as well in my S2s, and that's the way it should be. As you mentioned before as well, you know, these cars are actually, you kind of need somebody in front of you almost to be successful in these cars. It's very interesting, like you mentioned there. You do actually have to use kind of the draft in front of you and stuff if you're going to win a race. You can't really win a race in these things all by yourself unless you just happen to have way more pace than everybody else outright, which is, you know, kind of unheard of. So it is a little bit actually parasitic in that way almost, that you have to attach yourself to the cars in front of you that are faster to actually be faster and make the moves that you want to make. So it makes for a pretty interesting series with the multiple classes.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point. I like the use of the term parasitic. It's really a good way to describe it. You gotta leech yourself onto a car around you to kind of tow you along, especially in these Formula V races. The spec race of Fords that we see on Sunday afternoons here on Slow Motion Broadcasting kind of inhibit that similar vein, but the Formula V's just crank that up a notch. So looking at this racetrack, a beautiful circuit as well. 10 corners in all here at Summit Point, an old historic racetrack in the world of motorsports. A little bit of a short ride as well, about 2 miles, 1.98 to be a bit more precise, as iRacing likes to judge it. But these lap times going to be some of the quickest that we've seen thus far this season in the practice session. The top time in that was going to be from, for some reason it's not deciding to cooperate with me for some inexplicable reason. Gotta love my iRacing occasionally not liking me. Trying to figure out who exactly was at the top of the practice session, but still some pretty solid lap times in below the 90-second barrier. So the first time we've really seen a 1 minute 30 below lap time in quite some time from this season. But nevertheless, these drivers heading the racetrack now for this qualifying session. This is Jason Greider in the 552, heading his way off through turn number 4, which is a really tricky corner. And a quick little point to bring up, Josh, you mentioned a couple of moments ago how in these Formula V races can't really pull away. This was actually the very first race, this was the very first track that the Formula V Weekend Warrior Series raced at with a broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. It was myself and our old pal Tim Cox on the call for that one, and Megan Overstreet, who's a Weekend Warrior staple. Really hoping we can see her hit the track in the not-too-distant future, maybe this upcoming week for the series debut of the Ray Esports Club Racing Series. However, she pulled away in that race. That'd be really interesting to see if we'll go 2 for 2 and have that happen in back-to-back seasons. But Josh, going to be riding on board with Jason Greider. I want to do a quick little lap guide around this old-school blast that is Summit Point.
Yeah, absolutely. So fortunately, everybody gets a chance to try this track. This is definitely going to be one of the big passing spots here in the T1, probably the best passing spot on the track. You want to take that pretty tight and then get on the power as early as you possibly can. It's another little stretch down here that people will be tempted to try to pass, and you really have to get it done early. If you try to go double wide through this next section right here, it's not going to work out for anybody. You're either going to end up in the dirt, or you're going to, or you're just not going to make it through the corner together. So trying to keep that one tight and out of the dirt right there is definitely key to it. This is going to be totally flat right through here. Just keep it to the floor. As soon as you get through that kink, we're going to start trail braking a bit. Get it in nice and early and on the power as early as you can. This next section here, easily the most technical part of the track. You got to stay nice and close to the curb. Get on the power early. Just bringing it out pretty wide there. I would have kept it a little tighter. Brings it in tight. Didn't quite touch the inside there like you want to. Widen it up here for the right-hander. Pretty nice line through there as well. And you got this big back stretch here. Is a very important haul to get a good pull out of that last corner there to make sure that you can be in front of somebody by the time you get here. Or if you're trying to pass somebody, this is definitely where you're going to start setting it up right here for the big long straight. And that's about it at Summit Point. It's not a very long lap. only 1 minute and 28 seconds even in a V, and that was a pretty clean lap there for Grider.
And let's see where he goes on the board. Some drivers already saying some lap times. Grider going to be slotting in at the back as it stands at the moment. We'll see if any other drivers set some times. You can see the lap times beginning to be put on the board. Stefan Heemsker currently on the provisional pole at a 1 minute 26.644. However, I'm curious to see, there's the driver that I was curious to see, Thor Tulo, now going up to the top. Tulo and Heemsker have really just been itchy and scratchy thus far this season. That's really the best way I can describe it. They have been going back and forth. They have been trading blows like it's going out of style. But he got some drivers playing spoiler this week. He got Simon Mayer now on the pole, currently a little bit quicker than Tulo, about a tenth of a second quicker. Parvinder Ladar putting out a fantastic lap time. That is a brilliant result for the Spec 2 driver to slip his way into second in front of some Spec 1 contenders and Spec 1 heavy hitters as well. The Bada Bing driver putting in a Bada Bing of a lap time to slip his way up into P2. Guido Marzuki also kind of sticking his pinky in and kind of rummaging around trying to figure out what exactly he could do. Guido is usually pretty fast in this series. We've seen that guy put on full display ever since this series started being broadcasted here on Slow Motion Broadcasting about 1 season ago. But Marzuki currently qualified in 5th, splitting up that duo of Tulo and Heemsker. Going to be getting the second round of lap times on the board in just a couple of moments' time. Friendly reminder to anyone tuning into the series for the first time, got 4 laps to try and get the job done, and these drivers already trying to set the best lap times that they possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like we mentioned earlier in the broadcast here, a lot of people have been at this track, and they've probably been here multiple times in multiple cars. So I have a feeling that, you know, we're going to have some speed today out of a lot of people, as you're seeing here from Parvinder Ladar, even from Spec 2. He's up into second place, and I'm guaranteeing you that's because we've had multiple chances to race this place in a bunch of different cars, I'm sure. Summit Point is a great track. It's going to race really well, and I have a feeling that it's going to be a bit of a hornet's nest today.
It certainly will, especially on lap 1 heading down into turn number 1. I cower to think how the drivers in the midfield at the start of this race are going to respond to that. Gotta say as well, seeing a lot of participation for this race. Got a whole bunch of race cars out there on the circuit at the moment, trying to set some lap times on the board. Some more drivers going out there, though. Jason Green currently slotted in 3rd as it stands at the moment in this qualifying session. Just jumping up to 1st right as I say that's a beautiful timing from me to mention that. There's Green in that number 1 car, heading his way down into turn number 1. Only 1,000th of an improvement between himself and Simon Mayer in P2. This Formula V Weekend Warrior Series is usually offensively close, but that, I mean, you genuinely cannot get any closer.
Yeah, it doesn't get any more offensively close than that, does it, Ron? That's about as close as she can possibly get right there, and that's really not surprising, to be honest. We're going to be super tight today. They're going to be nose to tail, and it's really just going to be about making good decisions out there by the looks of it. You're going to have to make good decisions when to pass, when not to pass, when to pull out, when not to pull out. Mistakes are going to be huge. If you make a mistake, you're going to get chewed up by half the field around here, most likely, because there is going to be a big line of cars. So it should be a pretty cool, pretty exciting race. And it looks like we actually have a new driver here. Steve McQuillan just pops it in first place out of nowhere, and we're actually going to have to class him up here. His iRating's about 7,000. So he is a speedy driver.
Yeah, the Aussie of Sean McQuillan making his series debut 1 week ago, actually, at Rudskogen. He was pretty fast there. However, he did not bother to set a qualifying time, but now running in this race, he's bothered to take to the racetrack for qualifying and flexing his muscles at this point. That is a statement of a lap time, a 1 minute 26.178, much quicker than anyone else out there on the circuit at the moment. Jason Green trying to improve, did not improve on his best lap time last time by only about 300ths of a disimprovement, so to speak, only 300 slower. I don't believe disimprovement is a word. McQuillan, though, towing back to pit lane. He was right at the end of his allotment of qualifying laps, so I don't believe he was going to get a chance to improve, but still, pretty good lap time from the Aussie. We'll see if anyone can try and challenge him, as most of the field is on their final laps. Jason Green's on his final lap, as is Simon Mayer. Parvinder Ladar still has about 2 more laps to go, currently on his 3rd lap as it stands at the moment. Tulo about to complete his qualifying session, currently slotted in 5th at the moment. Is an improvement from him. I'm not sure it is. No, it is not. So he remains in 5th, not going to improve on his time. So the driver, the number 90, entering this race as a championship leader, maybe going to be a little bit disappointed with how this qualifying session went for him.
Yeah, it's getting pretty tight out there. Honestly, to be, almost 200ths ahead is a lot in these cars. That's a lot. That might as well be a mile. So he's putting in some serious times there, McQuillan. It's going to be interesting to see, as we said before, about the parasitic comment there, if they will actually be able to stay on his rear end, which will actually bring everybody into a bit of a faster lap time. So it should be pretty interesting to see what happens here from the start.
Yeah, the start of this race is just going to be pure unbridled pandemonium. I don't think there's any other way that we could phrase it. Considering how big this field is as well, that's going to be another factor, maybe helping or hurting these drivers. The closeness of the field certainly is as well. To go all the way back to, I guess, Nick Tulo, currently qualified in 30th, to get a driver who's over a second slower than our pole sitter of McQuillan. So this is just ridiculously close. I mean, we kind of mentioned at the very start of the show talking about an iRacer's familiarity with this track. There is no corner around this racetrack that I have not driven at, and there's no wall on this racetrack that I've not hit as well. So, I mean, just seeing this field at this point, putting in the lap times that they are and being so close to one another, really speaks volumes about the competitiveness in this series and how familiar a lot of these drivers treat this racetrack. It is a somewhat beginner-friendly one. It sounds a little bit mean to say that, but it's one that iRacing kind of just bops you into at the very beginning of your iRacing career. And plus, it's a somewhat forgiving track at times as well. You got grass all around it, gravel as well, sometimes even got some embankments to hit before you actually hit a barrier, and some invisible trees as well, some visible trees that you can just pass through like you're coming out of Hogwarts. Nevertheless, this track is one that I think kind of encourages drivers to get their sea legs under them, so to speak.
Yeah, you're kind of right there, Ron. It is. It's one of those tracks that's sort of easy to drive and hard to master. I like to use an analogy. I live out in the mountains and stuff like that between skiing and snowboarding. Anybody can ski because you stand up forward and you go. It's very easy to just stand up and go and have a day skiing. It's very hard to master skiing and look like you're good at it, though, to get the proper form and keep your poles in and learn how to ski so you look like you know what you're doing. Snowboarding, on the other hand, you can't just get up and do. You're going to be on your face and on your ass and on your face and on your ass and on your face and on your ass until eventually you just kind of get it. And then you can kind of look like you know what you're doing right away. So there's a bit of a difference between the two. One is easy to learn and hard to master, and the other is hard to learn and a little easier to master. And that could be said about Summit Point as well. It is a little bit of a difficult track, but just to get around it, really not that hard. But to be really fast, like Steve McQuillan up here, who's squeezing out an extra 0.2, is very difficult. So good on him for that one.
Yeah, McQuillan, that is a ridiculous lap time for him. Going to be much quicker than virtually every single car out there on the racetrack as it stands at the moment. And speaking of not a whole lot of cars left out there on the racetrack, looking like Chapman, another Australian, currently qualified in 8th at the moment. Driving the number 29 car out there on the racetrack still. I'm not sure if he has many laps left in his back pocket either. Yeah, it looks like he is on the final lap of his qualifying session. So Chapman, only one of, at this point, the only race car out there on the track as it stands at the moment. So as we see Chapman go around, we should probably talk about a fantastic partner that we have here with the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors, because today's broadcast of the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors on Slow Motion Broadcasting is brought to you today by Will at Steel Valley Vapors. Visit www.steelvalleyvapors.com to learn more and use code DOITFORDALE to get 15% off at checkout to buy from a now award-winning vape shop. So that's a nice little feather to have in their cap as well. Not only is Will a fantastic supporter of this series here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, I gotta say, great taste as well, supporting a series as awesome as this one. I also seems to run a pretty good vape shop. I mean, I would not know too much about that. I do not vape, but at the same time, credit where credit's due to him. Looking at the last car out there on the circuit, Chapman making that run to come down pit lane. Won't have to worry about that, unlike the other Weekend Warriors series here on SMB. It's still coming down pit lane, and that will just about do it for this qualifying session, unless I'm very much mistaken. Basically no cars out there on the track as it stands at the moment. A little bit of peace and quiet out there before things just turn into absolute pandemonium come time for the 30-minute race we have to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, it's great for Steel Valley Vapes to take that local award there and stuff, for sure. So he's doing a good job when you're winning local awards and stuff like that. And we can't thank him enough for sponsoring this series and stuff as well. It's a great fit as they puff around the track like little vapes. So it's perfect. I'm just seeing here in the chat as well, somebody telling me it's time for me to move up to S1. It certainly is. I will say, full disclosure, I have never held an iRacing or an iRating above 2200 ever in my career. So any speed I am finding this year is relatively new, and I'm finding it because I'm working for it, hoping that the S2 category kind of fills out a bit. But either way, really looking forward to moving up as well.
I'll tell you what, Josh, I have a little bit of experience in terms of moving up classes. I occasionally bring this up on the air. I don't bring it up too much, mainly because I feel like people will hear too much about this and want me to shut up, as if they don't already want me to do that as is. But in my early days of doing some karting stuff with the SCCA, we had different kart categories, the Junior C, Junior B, and Junior A categories. And when you were 12 years old, you had the option of either remaining in the Junior B category up until you were 13, or moving up into the JA category. So me being the somewhat cocky 12-year-old I decided to move up to A, and I mean, it worked out for me. I got 2 championships that year, but that's kind of the same sort of thing. You want to move up, you don't want to move up, you want to try and get some bragging rights, but at the same time, you want to be back in your comfort zone. I can see both sides of it. And looking at this racetrack now, you can see going down that long straightaway towards the end of this lap and the start of the lap as well. I am bracing myself for whatever demons may exist when the checkered flag comes out and they hit the jump after the start-finish line. I have a very strong feeling that I am going to be bawling my eyes out laughing so hard. So anyone tuned into this broadcast today, stay tuned for that exact reason. Not only is this race going to be absolutely fantastic, we're also going to see some aerial acrobatics from some Formula Vee race cars as well. But ready to get things up and rolling for this 30-man long race, and here is the starting grid. Sean McQuillan in the number 25 car, the Aussie. In just his second race in this series, going to be starting from a pole. Jason Green going to start alongside in second. Simon Mayer, the German, in third. Parviner Lador, the Spec 2 poleman, going to be starting this race in fourth overall. A very good qualifying result for the driver of the 432 car. Thor Tulo going to be starting in fifth. Guido Marzuki in sixth. Alan DeGassis in seventh. Sam Chapman in eighth. Chris Montgomery and Stefan Heemsker going to round out your top 10. Matthias Marin in 11th. Hank Mel in 12th. We got a short pace lap, so I'm going to have to gun through this as quickly as I can. Solomon Khan going to be starting in 13th. Jim Brewster in 14th. Mike McConnell in P15. Russell Telker in 16th. David Fitzgerald in P17. Adam Thompson, SMB's very own, going to be starting this race in P18. Andrew Love in 19th. Brad Cathcart in 20th. Donnie Isley in 21st. Brian Szynski off the back of a Spec 2 victory 1 week ago at Red Skogan. Going to be starting this race in 22nd. Ken Poulin in 23rd. His brother Dan Szynski going to be starting right behind in 24th. Dylan Fernando going to be starting in 25th. Jason Greider in 26th. Jeff Jacobson in 27th. Michelle Lynn, who's another sponsor for this broadcast. Thank you very much, Michelle. She's going to be starting in 28th. Mario Pacone in 29th. David Thompson in 30th. My apologies. Nick Tulo in 31st. Joshua Flores in 32nd. Travis Rail in 33rd. Wayne Buttermore in 34th. Carl Burke starting this race in 35th. Javier Rapula is going to be starting this race in 36th. And that rounds out the 36-car Formula Vee field that we have set to get things underway in just a couple of moments' time. As much as I've been on the air for these broadcasts ever since they first made their appearance here on SMB, I feel like someone's trying to kill me off making this a short pace lap, so I had to do all of that as quickly as I possibly can.
Good job, bro.
But as this field is underway, got one corner, no time at all to get these tires up to temperature, going to add some mystique and fear heading down into turn number 1. We're ready to get things up and rolling for the 7th race of this Formula Vee Weekend Warrior season, waiting for that green flag to come out, which it has now. The drivers are on their way. Already gunning it is our pole man of Sean McQuillan. Jason Green getting caught out a little bit. That's a big wreck a little bit farther in the back. Michelle Lynn up in the air. Some cars spun around. Some smoke getting flung up in the air as well. But heading down into turn number 1. I think because of that incident, the field a bit more broken up than they probably had in mind. But heading down into turn 1, will they get through clean, or will there be another incident? That remains to be determined. Looking at that, that's a pretty good fight going on involving Jason Green starting this race from a pole and Parvin Ladar starting this race from the pole in the Spec 2 category. Green, actually, I should apologize. He started this race in second. Next to our poleman of McQuillan, who's still leading them, heading their way down the hill off into turn number 4 for the first time by.
Yeah, that was a pretty great start up at the front. Didn't look so great at the back, though. Unfortunately, they really fanned out there, and it looks like somebody kind of almost got pushed off the track, and then we'll have to get a replay there. But really great start from our leader here, McQuillan. Just took off right from the beginning. He's already got a few car lengths on the rest of the field, and we'll just see how it trains out here now. I think we're going to probably have a pretty big pack to deal with in short order.
Yeah, I think in these Formula Vee races, you occasionally see that vacuum cleaner effect, not only on the back of these race cars creating such a strong draft, but also the vacuum effect of just sealing these cars oh so close together. We're definitely going to see that between now and the end of this race. That is for darn sure. Even now, only one lap on the board, actually a little bit less than that, as McQuillan crosses the line now to end that first lap of the race in the lead. Still got the top 25 covered by 10.5 seconds, so this pack is far from broken up, but looking now, battling down into turn number 1, down that back straightaway, battleless late breakers, heading off into turn 1. That start-finish straightaway is such a good overtaking opportunity. The Parvin Ladar going to get shuffled out a little bit. Tulo going to get that move done on him to slip his way up into 5th. Some drivers battling a little bit farther in the back, and I think Dan Szynski may have had a moment as he's now careening his way down the running order. Was running inside the top 20, but now falling out of it. Not sure what happened to him a couple of moments ago.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like he's got an off track on our telemetry here, so we'll have a quick look back at that shortly here and find out what happened to him, and then maybe we can jump and see what happened at the start there. But it's just a hornet's nest with these things. I'm imagining it's going to be pretty much like this the whole race. Let's see if we can't see what happened to Dan here.
Oh, you could see nearly 3 wide hang down into turn 1. May have gotten a little bit of a love tap into the corner, carrying a whole lot of speed, a whole lot of momentum. He's going to go off into the kitty litter. Small little off-track moment, but again, the runoff areas are a little bit forgiving around this racetrack, so really no harm, no foul outside a little bit of lost time and maybe a slightly dented ego.
Yeah, there is a bit of runoff around here for sure, as long as you don't go too far and end up getting ball parked right out of iRacing there. There is a few spots here where you can get shadow roamed for sure. But nope, he didn't go quite that far. Looks like maybe he got a little help there, but he was able to gather it up, and looks like he's back on track now.
Is currently slotted in 24th as it stands at the moment, with the hard battling a little bit farther up the road. Would not be shocked if he makes up some more spots. Jim Brewster running in 10th last time by, just at the fast lap of the race. Shows you how competitive this field is. There he is, trying to get a move done maybe on Stefan Heemskirk in the not too distant future. Looked like those two drivers were very briefly going side by side all through turn number 1 and 2 at the very beginning of this lap. You can see the smoke up in the air. These drivers going through the gears as much as they are. But looking at the front and really the whole field as a whole, it's incredibly tight at the moment. The top 24, Dan Szynski after that moment. He's running in 24th at the moment, only 12 seconds off of our leader of McQuillan. And looking at that fight there, you can see Jeff Jacobson, the number 40, in the midst of that, getting a move put on him by Fernando, heading through turn number 4 off into 5. This section here is really the most go-kart-esque track section around this wonderful ride of Summit Point. So in these cars, which are basically oversized go-karts, really where this car seems most fitting, but again, trying to maintain that momentum, heading off through a section like that with asphalt patchier than my face when I was 14. A little bit easier said than done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to put it. That section does feel very go-karty, which makes it racy and fun. It's actually one of my favorite sections. If you're good through there, you can really make up a lot of time like Jeff Jacobson did here. It's another driver who is always just in the middle of a hornet's nest. I feel for him, because I've been there as well. When you're kind of S2 driver, or he's an S1 driver actually, but when you're in mid-pack like this all the time, you have to fight for everything all the time. And we see Jeff Jacobson every week just in the hornet's nest fighting. It looks like he's doing another good job here to hold some drivers off.
And that's a big thing with these Formula Vee Weekend Warriors races. As much as you may have a whole lot of speed, if you cannot defend, you're going to drop down like a rock. You got to put your foot down at a certain point and maybe just drive
Absolutely.
the lightest Formula Vee race car in the world. Add a little bit of bars onto the side of it just to prevent anyone from going either side of you. Looking, though, the Pied Piper in this race is certainly Sean McQuillan, still leading in the number 25 car. However, the pack behind him is insane. I think Telker just had a moment heading down into turn number 5. Saw him go off the circuit. He's now losing out on a boatload of time and losing out some positions as well. May fall out of the top 20 as well. Really tricky heading through a section like that, because if you go off the circuit, it feels like the grass, you feel like it just fell off a cliff. But looking at this replay of the incident involving Russell Telker and that number 260 car, it looked like he just overcooked it a teeny tiny bit, heading down into turn number 5, having to take a little bit of evasive action to avoid contact with the car right in front of him, and that's going to cost him a whole lot of time. Trying to see curling down in 17th, a tough mistake for him, but now looking like that game of leapfrog at the front going to start as McQuillan on that inside line, Green on the outside, and look at Tulo coming out of the blue. Thor Tulo coming in to try and get some moves done. Maybe got to follow McQuillan by Green, but you got that gravy train on the outside of Green and Chapman. Looks like they're not going to be able to get that move done successfully. At least Chapman won't be able to. Green, on the other hand, still racy. Look at Chapman there in the number 29 car, 2x2, heading down into turn number 3. Looks like Green's going to get that move done on McQuillan. Tulo going to slip in fourth, right behind Chapman, but Tulo maybe trying to go for a move heading downhill into turn number 4. That's a section where if you go for a move like that, you have to have some cojones to try and even think about attempting that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the part of the race here when you really have to start thinking in the car, for sure. Some of those guys up at the front are very good at that as well. You can see them kind of shuffling around. As I said before in the run up there, any little mistake through here, if you pull out at the wrong time, if you miss a corner, if you go off the road, you're going to get passed by like 9 cars immediately. So you really have to make sure you're in this train, that you're making good decisions, and that you're being nice and smooth on the application of throttle and gas and so on. And also, really, one of the things you want to think about is just playing ball with the people around you. You got to be a bit friendly for a while. We still have some time going here. The race isn't over. There's a bit of time to go. And if you start getting your shoulders out too much early on, it just makes for a very stressful, very hard race, and really ups the being able to crash and so on. So looks like they're doing a pretty good job.
I do not envy the resting heart rate of any of these drivers, considering how hard they're battling. Look at Green getting hung out to dry on the outside of turn number 1. Even his old pal of Chapman going to abandon him as he's on the inside line in that train of McQuillan, Chapman himself, and Tulo. So looking, heading out into turn number 3. Looks like Chapman is still going to slip in behind Green at the moment, but Tulo going to have a mighty run coming out of the corner, heading down into 4. Tulo, the number 90, trying to get that move done. Will it be successful, or is it going to end in tears now side by side through the braking zone of 5? Chapman on the inside line, a little bit of contact being made, and Tulo having to use all of the asphalt that was available to him. Tulo breaking the elbows out, Chapman breaking the elbows out as well, but Tulo going to prevail in that fight and actually creating a small cushion between himself and the pack of McQuillan and Green right in front. And that's a spinner. Jeff Jacobson losing out on some time. I think the other driver that just spun may have been Fernando, possibly. Looking at Carl Burke in the 325 car, he may have had a moment earlier on in this race. Lots of stuff going on in the early stages of this 30-minute long race, now with 8.5 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, you can see that great move that Thor set up there. So he knew, if you hang around the outside there for a little bit, you're eventually going to get the inside through that go-kart section there, and that's exactly what he did. So really well done move there. Really well from his competitors as well to give him the room to do so, and everybody gets to keep fighting another day.
These drivers certainly hoping to be able to make it to the checkered flag to finish first. First, you have to finish, so these drivers hoping not to get caught up too much in the red mist. We've got some red curbs around this racetrack and some red race cars out there too. But just because that is the case does not mean you get caught up in the red mist. Tulo has gotten a move done to take the lead of this race. McQuillan dropping back, and now Green and Chapman going side by side on the exit of turn number 3. Don't want to hit that gravel trap, that'll slow you down like it ramps straight into a concrete wall. But side by side through 4, this is some gutsy stuff from both of these drivers. Will it be deja vu with Chapman losing out on another spot? It will not, as Green is not able to hold on the challenge that Tulo did 1 lap ago. Gonna lose out on a position, now slotted in 3rd. Gonna start feeling some pressure from our at 1 point race leader of McQuillan. And look at Parvinder Lador in the midst of that as well. This pack at the front really of 11 race cars going all the way back to Guido Marzucchi is now 3.3 seconds off of the leader of Tulo, but a massive pack of race cars at the front of this field, and Lador as a Spec 2 driver right in the middle of a beautiful drive for him thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. Great drive for him for sure. We got a just hornet's nest of drivers here for sure. I'm surprised here that we haven't had any sort of an incident yet, and I probably just jinxed it there. You can see that Jason Green is just under attack by driver after driver here. Unfortunately, he keeps getting shuffled to the outside and has lost a position a lap so far, so he's just lost another one 3 laps in a row here. just like I said at the beginning there, if you end up getting shuffled out to the side, you end up losing position. So I would imagine now he's just trying to stem the bleeding and see if he can't catch up.
Yeah, that's one thing that we have seen in the past in these Formula Vee Weekend Warriors races is driver goes for a move, and then in the span of just about one lap, they careen their way down the running order. I've seen it in the past where drivers have lost down like 5 to 10 positions in the span of just a couple of laps. The same goes for some GT3 racing as well, which is pretty much as far away from you, as far away from a Formula V race car as you can get in the world of iRacing. So it just happens, especially at a racetrack like this, with not a whole lot of margin for error or anywhere to hide at all. Looking though, Adam Thompson running in the 9th position at the moment. He's really the tail of this pack of cars at the front of the field. I said it was Marzuki and Brewster. However, they've lost tabs a little bit with Thompson running in the 9th position. They're only about 1.3 seconds separating those two cars right toward the tail end of the top 10. But Thompson in a 144 car started off the season as a Spec 2 driver, moved on to Spec 1. He's been in contention for some race victories in the past. However, hasn't really materialized over the past few weeks. But he's in a good position right now, running in 9th at the moment as Chapin and Tulo start the battle for the win.
Yeah, we got another Hornet's Nest here. You can see that this is just playing into the hands of Chapman up front there. He's hopefully, or sorry, not hopefully, he is most likely going to pull away if they keep fighting like this. So we will see how it goes here, if they can manage their time. And it looks like they might be catching up to some lap traffic. Is that lap traffic up there, Ron? I believe that it is. Let's see if we can't find out who that lap traffic is. Yes, that's definitely lap traffic. So hopefully they will do the right thing here and get out of the way. It's going to be a little bit difficult to let all of these cars through, but let's see if this gentleman can do it for us here. We can find out who that is. I'm not sure who that is quite yet, but we will find out who it is here shortly.
I think it may possibly be Flores, possibly losing out on a little bit of time. I'll be honest, folks, I just came back from a quick run to the restrooms. I'm not sure exactly what just happened. A couple of moments ago, saw him losing out on some time, so that may have possibly been.
Yeah, we're catching up to some lap traffic here.
Ooh, boy, yes, we certainly are. This is going to be some fun stuff. 3 wide heading down the start-finish straightaway. These drivers are going to be playing with fire. I don't have a good feeling about this at all. But looking at that pack heading down into turn number 1, 10 laps on the board, coming to halfway mark. This is insanity. 2 wide throughout most of that front pack. Got some lap cars in the midst of that, some battles for position as well. Looking at Khan now losing out on a little bit of time. He's coming to the pits. Not sure what happened there. Tulo now in the lead. Chapman still trying to get a move done on him. McQuillan gaining some spots as well, along with Montgomery and Heemskirk getting moves done on Carpenter. Lindor is now but shuffled back down to 7th. But looking though, this pack is insane. These Formula Vee Weekend Warriors races, I mean, I feel like I say this all the time with this series, but really should not go unnoticed. The fact that we have a pack like this of 9 cars covered by basically no time at all, halfway into a 30-minute long race with battles still going on, is really impressive. But I think the battles may be breaking up a little bit as the gap between Heemskirk and Ladar has increased a lot, ballooning out to now about 1.4 seconds between Ladar in 7th and Heemskirk in 6th. I think there may have been some battling with Ladar, Thompson, and Mayer a couple of moments ago. Simon Mayer having a pretty scrappy race, and you can see now Guido Marzuki involved in that fight, along with Jim Brewster, I believe. So this fight is still breaking up a little bit, but despite the fact that these drivers have lost touch a little bit with the cars in front, they're still putting on a good show. 3 wide, heading down the start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1.
Oh boy.
3 wide at the front as well. McQuillan, Chapman, and Tulo. Tulo, a Formula V driver in real life, going to back out of it. McQuillan on the other end, battling hard with Chapman, looking at that fight between those drivers. 2 Aussies duking it out for the win in this race, and we haven't even hit the halfway mark. These drivers already looking forward to the checkered flag, but this is just pure unbridled and unadulterated madness.
Yeah, this has been really great so far for sure. That's 2 or 3 laps now where we're 2, 3, 4 wide into T1 and everybody sorts it out. Nobody really changing positions all that much either, so yeah, really, really good on the drivers here for keeping it clean so far, and this just giant train of cars that's following each other. It's great. Who knows what's going to happen by the end here. Oh, we get a big snap from I believe that was Chapman out front there. Almost just lost it. and you can see how quickly he's just going to get swallowed up by 2 cars there, almost 3. So pretty good to recover actually like that and not lose more than 2 positions. Jason Green giving him a bit of leeway there as well. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, Chapman mega sideways, heading off to the tight twisties towards the middle sector of this lap. That 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 section is so hard on all sorts of race cars, these Formula V's being no exception, especially in a race like this, in a pack like that. You make one small little mistake, go off the track just for a moment, and it can absolutely end in total and unbridled disaster. Tulo trying to get moved on McQuillan. They're going to be side by side, heading down the start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1. Will Tulo get that moved on the outside, or is McQuillan going to put on a defensive masterclass? Battling right behind is Chapman and Green as well. So these fights are still heating up. If not, they're actually getting a little bit hotter with every single pass of that start-finish line. Looks like Chapman going to slot in behind McQuillan in front of Green, as Tulo getting that move done to hold on to the lead of this race. All these drivers in this front pack, mainly the drivers in the top 4, have fantastic opportunities to win this race. They are fast in these race cars, and they have led laps already. McQuillan started this race from the pole as he gets a move done on Tulo heading into turn number 5 to retake the lead of this race. I mentioned earlier the fact that Tulo and Heemskirk were kind of itchy and scratchy. I think in this race, McQuillan and Tulo are the ones doing it, but McQuillan running a little bit wide, heading through turn number 7. This may be the opportunity that Tulo needs to shuffle him back a little bit. I think at this point in time, Tulo is probably hoping that all the drivers behind him just are able to shuffle out McQuillan, because at this point in time, he wants no parts of this fight with McQuillan, because McQuillan, he's not only able to hold up a pretty good fight, he is swinging at Thor Tulo. So this is a fight of just absolute titans in these Formula V race.
Yeah, absolutely. Good way to put it, Ron, for sure. He is swinging. He's out there swinging almost every corner. I'm actually a little bit surprised that we're going 3 wide here. I'm going to just be quiet for a second while we check this out, see if they can sort it. And they have sorted it again for the most part. It looks like McQuillan got a little bit left out on that one, unfortunately. But yeah, back to my point, that they're able to keep up this speed while they're fighting like this is actually quite impressive. Usually when they go too wide and so on like that, you're just going to get trained by the people behind you and get past really quickly, and it's just not happening. So yeah, we're really keeping their average speed up. Even this pack behind them now, that it looks like Adam Thompson is leading. He's made some positions there. Pretty awesome stuff. Pretty good racing here from all the drivers.
This is absolutely nuts. I feel like I've mentioned that probably about 14 bajillion times thus far throughout this broadcast, but in the 18 minutes and 20 seconds of racing action that we've had thus far, there has not been a dull moment at all. It has been intense, it has been insane, and it is going to be a fantastic finish to this race. A couple of minutes ago, we passed the halfway mark of this season, and this is a fantastic way to kick off the second half of this season. Certainly a great way to kick off the second half of the season for Thompson, as we're taking a look at a replay of a move that he pulled off heading down into turn number 1. You can see that on the outside of him, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, is a 5 of Simon Mayer heading down into the corner. Yes, it is the 5. Getting a little bit crossed up with the bumps heading down into 5, but nevertheless going to hold off that move at the moment. However, they're now side by side, so beautiful time to take a look at that replay as they begin to trade blows yet again. Speaking of trading blows, this pack at the front is still insane. Tulo, Chapman, McQuillan. Ooh, I think a little bit of battling involving Montgomery as well. This is just, I mean, something's got to break here, Josh, because this has just been absolutely nuts. I think Green may have been the one that broke, because he's lost out on a little bit of time in the past few moments. But with how hard these drivers are battling, and with how hard they have been battling thus far throughout the 2/3 of the race that we've had thus far, I feel like something's got to break here soon.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that we haven't had some sort of at least a scuffle or something at some point. We haven't even had any tire contact or anything yet, which is awesome. We're getting some pretty good racing here out of the drivers today, for sure. Not an easy track to be so close to each other and side by side everywhere as well. And I'm, again, just blown away at that they're not losing so much speed. That backpack is starting to catch them now, and it looks like we are going to have a bigger train here pretty soon. It looks like Jason Green as well is kind of slipping back there. He's lost 3 or 4 positions in the last 5 laps, so I'd expect to see him trying to move to the front here soon.
Yeah, I mean, Green has won this series this season, won it all the way back at Mid-Ohio a couple of weeks ago. Really, at this point, come to think of of it. So he's pretty fast in this series. All these drivers are quick in this series. They've backed those cars into victory lane in the past. That or they have shown winning speed. McQuillan is one of those cars that has shown winning speed in his second race in this series. He is battling with the Apex Predator, nearly going off the track. I think he dipped 2 wheels into the dirt hang through turn number 1 just a couple of moments ago. But this fight is still going to be intense. Riding on board with Sam Chapman in the 29 car, the Aussie running 5th at the moment. You can see a fight going on right in front of him. He may try and make it 3 wide. That's Chris Montgomery. Oh boy, that was going to end in tears if he tried to go forward. He understandably so backed out of it. That could have ended in pure unbridled disaster if it was all 3 wide action coming out of turn number 3 down into turn 4. But Stefan Heemskerk and Chris Montgomery now starting to battle. Looks like Montgomery holding on to the P3 spot as it stands at the moment. Look at that fight though involving Thompson and Marzuki right towards the tail end of the top 10. So despite the fact that it did break up not terribly long ago, the pack of Mayer, Thompson, and Marzuki slowly reeling in those drivers at the front. And it just shows you how hard they're battling.
Yeah, absolutely. So I take back what I said earlier. They are losing a bit of time up here at the front for sure. We've got that pack with Thompson and Guido and stuff as well, catching up to them now, and they're definitely in the game now here as we have Thor pulling out for another look on McQuillan into T1. And Montgomery just hiding in the back there. Everybody just looking like vultures for somebody to make a mistake here into T1.
Oh boy, that was near disaster. There's been so many close calls thus far in this race. I'm not even sure if I should mention them whenever they happen. Look at that. That is insane. That looks more like a pace lap than anything else. McQuillan, Tulo side by side. Montgomery, Chapman side by side. Heemskerk in the midst of that as well. Chapman having an off-track moment, heading down into turn number 3. Very fortunate for him that he kept that car going in a straight line because he looked like he was in a world of trouble. But going to remain in P5 as well, so well done to Sam Chapman. The fact he was able to hold on to that with the ferocity that he did. And look right behind, that's Adam Thompson, who's a hard charger in this race. He's up 12 spots, not the most amount of positions made up by a driver. However, that is still pretty damn impressive for our SMB colleague. Running in the 6th position at the moment, right behind him, you've got Green, Mayer, and Marzuki, along with Parvin Ladar, all of which have lost out on some positions. So the yin and yang being shown in the world of racing here from today's race in the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors. But this is setting ourselves up for what is going to be 7 last minutes of just pandemonium. I think there's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to kick off here pretty soon, right? We've had a very, very clean race. Everybody's been keeping their head about them and so on. Hopefully that will remain, but we definitely have the other pack catching up now, and anybody can take this one at this stage, especially when you're going 4 wide like this into T1 again.
Oh boy, is this going to end in tears this time by? Looks like it's going to maybe end in tears for Tulos. He's going to lose out on the lead to Stefan Heemskerk. So even though I said that Heemskerk was dropping a little bit farther down in the pack, looks like Heemskerk has put on a pretty good drive thus far, up 9 spots when we started in this race. So a rousing effort from the driver to number 96, looking to take his first Spec 1 victory. That would be a mightily impressive result. However, he's going to have to fight like hell to try and get the job done. Tulo right behind enters this race as a championship leader. Sean McQuillan, another racer in that same sort of category as Stefan Heemskerk, that's probably going to grab a victory at some point this season just based off the law of averages and speed alone. However, anything can happen in these Formula Vee Weekend Warriors races, and we're going to see that get put on full display between now and the end of this thing. Coming up in about 6 minutes time, Stefan Heemskerk leading it over Tulo in P2, McQuillan in 3rd, Montgomery in 4th, Chapman in P5, Thompson in 6th, Green, Marzuki, Mayer, and Lador rounding out your top 10 at the moment, which is just covered by absolutely nothing. The amount of cars that we have on frame, Josh, I feel bad for your PC. Probably going to be bursting into flames when everything is said and done from today's broadcast. But Tulo trying to get it done around the outside, heading down the start-finish straightaway, clicking over to begin the 19th lap of this race. This is just insane with these drivers. Look at McQuillan now trying to get a move done, possibly following Tulo and shuffling Heemskerk farther back, but Heemskerk is going to put on a fight of his own. And look at Chapman trying to make up some spots as well. Look at that from McQuillan, some more rally action coming through turn number 1. He's getting really flirtatious with those gravel traps and grass on the outside of these corners. I feel like McQuillan, despite the fact he has a whole lot of speed in these race cars, and I believe still has one of, if not the fastest laps of the race thus far, he's feeling more pressure than he has thus far. That is for certain, considering how much he's pushing that car to the absolute limit as riding on board with Marzuki, trying to get moved on Montgomery heading down into turn number 4. Not going to work out for him as they're going to single file outs coming out of turn number 5. Getting back to the point involving McQuillan, he's pushing that car to the limit more, Josh. I think that is really clear just based off how close he's getting to the outside limits of this racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely got shuffled out twice there for sure. I'm not sure if that was from someone hustling him out or hustling the car, or a little of both, I think is what happened there for sure. So yeah, it looks like people are getting a little hot under the collar now. We are getting close to the end, and this is the time to start making a move. You have to make your move soon here. Especially if you're, back 5th, 6th, 7th place, you want to start making your way to the front. I would not be surprised here if we see Jason Green start to making a jump at it, and if we start seeing people get real defensive and stuff as well. It's time to start holding that position. Oh, as we have some contact right away. He literally popped up all 4 wheels in the air and landed back on the road. Very lucky for McQuillan there, my goodness.
Contact. Oh, that's Montgomery going off the circuit. Pandemonium here at the front of the field. Stefan Heemskerk dropping back. There's got to be some damage on that race car. He nearly went to low Earth orbit, and that nearly sent Montgomery off into Virginia. That was near disaster with those two, and it's created more chaos at the front of this field. McQuillan now leading Chapman in second. Tulo in third. My vocal cords hanging on by the skin of their teeth. And look at Adam Thompson now slipping his way up into fourth with all that drama hanging down the start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1. That was near disaster. 2 near disasters in the span of just a couple of moments. Montgomery certainly worse for the wear, even though he's in the midst of that pack still. I'm curious as to whether or not there's some significant damage on Stefan Heemskerk's car, because that was a pretty significant whack. These Formula Vee race cars can be a little bit tough, but not that tough. That was a pretty big whack of 2 race cars hitting him in the span of, like 10 seconds time. There's some very odd noises escaping my mouth around that same time as well. Coming towards the end of this race, though, less than 3 minutes on the clock. McQuillan still leading. Chapman and P2. We got Aussie 1 and 2. Tulo, the Brit, at one point lived in Japan. He's a Formula V racer in real life. He's running third at the moment. Thompson in fourth. This is going to be a beautiful finish to this race. Look at that pack, though, of Tulo and Thompson working together on the inside line. Looks like they don't have any more helpers on that inside line, but will they be able to get the move done to slip their way up to the front? Thompson trying to get move done to slip his way up into third. Tulo trying to take the lead. That's an off-track moment for Sean McQuillan. He's going to lose out on a spot, maybe lose out on a couple. 3 wide coming out of turn number 1. This is pandemonium. The pandemonium is still continuing here.
Oh
my God, this is insane. Thompson trying to get the move done around the outside through turn number 3 and gets it done successfully. And Sean McQuillan, Sam Chapman, the other Aussie, started this lap in second. He's now running in fourth. McQuillan started this lap in the lead. He's now running in third. This is just... the best way I could describe this is a bunch of angry shoppers pushing each other out of the way to get to a flat screen smart TV on Black Friday. It is pure madness here at Summit Point. Tulo leading it, though. They're going to be taking a white flag this time by Thompson in second. Those two were working together as a tag team a couple of moments ago. Is that teamwork going to make the dream work for both of them, or is Thompson going to try and be a little bit greedy and maybe go for a move? He may try and go for a move heading off into the final corner. Don't see a driver go for a move like this heading down the inside into turn number 10, but Thompson makes it stick. Well done, Adam, to get that move done to slip into the lead of this race, but he's going to be a sitting duck heading down the start-finish straightaway. That's usually why people prefer momentum instead of this. Nearly 4 wide, the white flag in the air. One more lap of racing action here from the Formula V Weekend Warriors. 3 wide, though. Chapman, Tulo, Thompson. You got Green and McQuillan in tows as well. Look at Chapman going to be leading them all through turn number 1. Thompson wheeling that thing on the inside line, making a little bit of contact with Tulo, heading off through turn number 1 and 2. Look at Jason Green as well. Tulo trying to get a move done on Thompson. Green maybe going to try and get a move done on Thompson. McQuillan probably a little bit upset with how things have gone for him in the past few moments, side by side. Through turn at number 3, you can see some gravel getting picked up in the air. McQuillan running off the circuit, going for an off-the-wall odd strategy to overtake Green with a little bit of off-track excursion. The FIA would probably not be very happy if that move was done in Formula 1, but Chapman leading them, heading through turn number 5. The go-kart section towards the middle sector of this lap is going to be the last section where these drivers feel some pain. There's a crash there involving Green and Marzuki. They're now losing out some time. They're falling outside the top 10, so that's going to be disastrous for those two to end this race. But here is the fight. The fight is very much on. Tulo nearly going into the dirt to try and get by Chapman to take the lead of this race. Look at Thompson wheeling it, trying to make a 3 wide hang down into the final corner to end off this race. Chapman, Thompson side by side coming out of the final corner. I have a good feeling about Tulo and McQuillan though. Look at that, 3 wide, nearly 4 wide cars covered by barely any air heading to the checkered flag. And big
disaster.
crash coming around. Cars upside down. Thompson upside down, skating on his roll hoop. Big contact with Ladar as well. Chapman though ends up winning it. Less than a 1/10 of a second between the top 4 at the end of this race. Holy cow.
Yeah. Yep. Holy cow, Ron. That was absolutely amazing. That last lap was real hard to keep up with here, so we're going to go and grab some replays here right away and see if we can't find out what happened to Jason Green and Marzucci there on the last lap, as well as this just cluster at the end here. What a finish.
Towards the end of it, they were battling hard, but it was a fustercluck coming across the line. There's the incident involving Marzucchi and Green, just a small little bit of contact coming through turn number 6 and 7. That sends those 2 race cars around Marzucchi. Trying to go for the move on Green, a little bit of contact made, and both of those cars end up very lightly in the air with some damage on them as well. That drops them back, but this is the fight. I was genuinely at a loss for words, at a loss of energy. Pretty sure my lungs were completely empty by this point, but look at that. McQuillan gave a bump to Chapman, and that may honestly, despite the fact it kicked off this major incident with 2 cars ending up upside down, despite that, I think, oh my god, you can see the more contact being made. Was that with, I believe Ladar may have been the car that was involved in that. You can see him barrel rolling and ending up parked on the tire barrier after the end of this race. Riding on board with Ladar, was he the one that made contact? Oh, he gunned it. I have a feeling it was. Yes, it was.
Oh, that big one.
Hits him upside down. Barrel rolling, heading down. That Formula Vee race car is destroyed. Of all the times to do it, though, it's after the checkered flag. But getting back to that finish involving Chapman and McQuillan, I think if McQuillan didn't give that bump to Chapman, that may have been Thompson or Tulo's race to lose. Because that, I mean, it caused a major accident. Do not get me wrong. Sean McQuillan looking like to be a very aggressive racer in this series. But you can see bump there, small little tap, and it sends him around. I think it may have been Chapman's anyway, even without that small little tap. Certainly extended that gap just a little bit more, but you could see huge amount of drama at the end of this race. Huge amount of drama throughout the whole race, for that matter. Who am I kidding? Looking at that from Thompson, skidding upside down. His car is still ruined, though. He ends up second when everything is said and done. Okay, we're getting the jump here, folks. And there's Jeff Jacobson trying to do it. There's Michelle Lynn upside down between the grassy knoll and the tire barrier. Getting a fantastic view of hell. There we go. That's
She has been shadow realmed.
I love the camera angles that we have here. A beautiful view of the shadow realm here on iRacing. Michelle Lynn did not have a very good race. Got involved in an incident at the very beginning. Ends up upside down when everything is said and done. Hit that jump. Lots of cars ending up upside down. I was expecting some cars to end up on their lid just based off the drivers taking the jump towards the end, but I was not expecting drivers to be upside down about 50 feet after crossing the start-finish line to bring this race to a close. That was absolutely incredible. I am genuinely at a loss for words. I may actually be at a loss for a voice. I did not have any water with me during this broadcast, and my vocal cords and my throat as a whole would be very angry with me from everything is said and done here. I mean, Josh, we were expecting that race to be hectic. We were expecting there to be a little bit of incidents and some drivers certainly pushing their cars the absolute limit of control. But after that messy start in the mid-pack, we didn't have the drama we expected heading off into turn number 1. Instead, we ended this race with 2 cars ending up upside down and the front 4 only covered by 3/4 of a 1/10 of a second. That was absolutely incredible, and I think we got some results to take a look at here from this race. I'm still catching my breath after all that. I will be completely real.
Yeah, fantastic race there for sure. Right down to the wire too at the end there with a spectacular finish. Too bad about the start there. I just did a quick replay there to see what happened, and it looks like, man, when you're starting this many cars, it's just almost bound to happen sometimes that somebody's going to have a bit of an incident there, and that's kind of what it looks like happened. Somebody just bumped somebody and set off a chain reaction, and unfortunately we had a pretty big one right at the beginning. But other than that, very clean race. Really good racing from Adam Thompson as well to make, I believe it was like 17 positions up or something like that. So excellent race today, Ron. I'll get the results for you ASAP here.
Thank you very much for that. I just had a moment to kind of catch my breath and get my bearings straight. I don't think my bearings are going to be straight for quite some time after that, because that was absolutely fantastic. Sam Chapman wins it when everything is said and done. The Aussie takes the victory, 0.039 of a second in front of Adam Thompson in second. Thor Tulo finishes only 0.02 of a second behind in third, and Sean McQuillan ends up less than 0.02 of a second behind Tulo to finish this race in fourth. All of those drivers had a really good shot to win this race. All those drivers, thankfully, frankly, deserve to win this race, but Chapman is the one that gets it done when everything is said and done. Stefan Heemskerk going to finish in 5th. Chris Montgomery going to finish in P6. Simon Mayer ends up in 7th. Parvinder Ladar, despite the fact he ended up this race T-boning our race winner, he still wins it in the Spec 2 category, finishing 8th overall. Jim Brewster ends up right behind in 9th. Jason Green and Guido Marzucchi finished 10th and 11th respectively after their little scuffle heading through turn number 6 and 7 towards the end of this race. Andrew Love going to be the second finishing Spec 2 driver in 12th. Michael McConnell finishes in 13th. Russell Telker finishes in P14. David Fitzgerald finishes in 15th. Hank Mell in 16th. Brian Szynski in 17th. Javier Rapules, who I believe when everything is said and done is the hard charger from this race, making up 18 spots between the start and the finish. Only driver that was really close in was Thompson, who ended up gaining 16 spots when everything is said and done, but well done from Javier to finish in P18. Looking through the rest of the field, some of these drivers being involved in some incidents towards the end of this race or towards the very beginning as well. Dan Szynski ends up in 19th. He was involved in an incident all of his own doing, heading down into turn number 1 earlier on. Travis Rail finishes in 20th. Nick Tulo finishes in 21st. Wayne Buttermore in 22nd. Dylan Fernando in 23rd. Joshua Flores in 24th. Jeff Jacobson, who we saw having a very odd attempt at the jump towards the end of the action on track, he ends up in 25th. Suleiman Khan finishes in 26th. Alan DeGassis right behind in 27th. Matthias Marin ends up in 28th. Get through the rest of the drivers in this field. Got Brad Cathcart finishing in 29th, one of the last cars to end up on the lead lap. The final car finishing on the lead lap is actually Michelle Lynn in 30th. Then we have Ken Poulin, Mario Picone, Carl Burke, David Thompson, Jason Grider, and Donnie Isley, rounding out the 36 cars that are classified here at Summit Point. And Josh, we've got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. Who would you like to have a chat with first?
Yeah, let's have a quick chat with our winner here, Sam Chapman, first. Bring him in the booth. Sam, how's it going out there today, man? You looks like you had a great race. Total hornet's nest out there. How did you keep it together, man?
It was a total hornet's nest. It's you know, you take the opportunities when they present them, but not in the wrong spots, pretty much. And you know, everyone was racing pretty well, other than the final straight where it all sort of went haywire. But we're over the line by then, so it's okay. But yeah, no, it was, you know, you take the opportunity where they are, and you know, if someone bumps you off, you you reassess and join the back of the pack and work your way back up again. So yeah, no, it's just a classic V's racing. Great fun. Some of the best V's racing I've had in a while.
Awesome. Classic V racing, to be sure, for sure. So when you're out there like that, thinking in the car, how is it exactly that you keep yourself calm and keep yourself in the middle of that pack? Also, what do you think happened at the end there? Did you get a bump in the rear end, or was that intentional, unintentional, for fun? What happened there?
Yeah, so Sean actually messaged me afterwards. He was just like, yeah, I was trying to give you the bump draft because I knew that you had first already locked up, and if I could just get a little bit further ahead, I might be able to get in third. So, and I was like, well, I mean, you know, we wouldn't do it in a real race car, but I guess it makes sense in the fake
And
world.
we found out why. I think you wouldn't do it in a real race car pretty quickly there as well.
Yeah, it became a Volkswagen spare parts factory after that. But yeah, as far as just staying calm is concerned, I mean, I've done a fair bit in the V's now, and you know, that it's all about being in the tow and picking your dancing partner and all that sort of thing, rather than you know, trying to be first every lap. So, you know, if you get knocked back a little bit, you know, you just work your way back through it and try and manage that risk. But you know, you also need to make those moves as well, because, you know, you can get caught up in mischief. So fortunately that the front guys were really clean tonight, other than a few sort of like bits and bobs knocked off here and there. It was all pretty clean, and we didn't get tangled somehow. So yeah, it wasn't until that final thing that my heart really started pumping.
For sure, those last couple laps were great. Good way to put it there, too, finding your dance partner, and you definitely got to know when to strike, and it looks like today you did, and you took the win. Is there anybody out there you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I mean, well, thanks for the guys for the racing, and you guys for putting it on. I've keep, you know, I'm in Australia, and I keep missing it on a Sunday morning for me to actually get up and do it. But, you know, I'm glad I did this morning. I guess my team back in Oz, Verminions, and their sponsors, Racelab Overlays, Burb Design, Supernova Motorsports, Moser Racing, Homo Setups, and Verminiacs Coaching. Yeah, you guys are putting on a broadcast as well. It's always good.
Excellent. Right on, Sam. Thank you very much. Very professional thank yous there and everything, and we'll see you next week for another one.
Thanks, mate. Have a good one.
You too.
And that right there was Sam Chapman. Pretty nice guy to have a chat with when everything is said and done. I'll tell you what, just hearing his perspective throughout that absolute madness was pretty good to have. And I think we'll drag in one more person to have a chat with at the end of this broadcast, that being our SMB colleague, Adam. Adam ending up in second, but just the entirety of that race, I was genuinely at a loss for words pretty much after the conclusion of about lap 4. So just talk us through it from your perspective, being out there on the racetrack and seeing that total unbridled madness here at Summit Point.
Cue the Eminem music, by the way. Guess who's back? Adam. But no, it was it was obviously the start. During the draft party last night, we started on green, and Sean, to no fault of his own, decided to go on green again, and it caused more issues. And I dodged that one barely, and then it was just keeping your head down. And I'm at a loss for words, Ron. I mean, best race I've ever had, gaining 16 positions.
Yeah, I can imagine throughout that race, I mean, considering the pack was pretty close together, it kind of gives you the opportunity to do that, but just keeping your nose to the grindstone, be able to put off that many overtakes between the start and the end of this race, just absolutely insane. Do you think this racetrack, despite the fact it only has one real long flat-out blast, do you think this track is actually pretty good to overtake at with these Formula V's? Because despite that, we saw drivers going for some moves everywhere.
Yeah, I think it is. Obviously, you know, you've got the turn 1 that is really good for overtaking, but you got to try to get back in line for turn 3 because you lose a lot of momentum, and then turn 5 is another good one. But throw all that out the window. We were, like you said, we were making overtakes everywhere, and I want to give a massive shout out, by the way, to Simon Mayer. We got separated from that lead pack there for a little while, and we worked together brilliantly and caught back up to him. So if it wasn't for Simon, none of that, everything you would have saw would have been for naught. But yeah, just unbelievable racing and the overtaking, and everybody, for the most part, kept it extremely clean. You know, for how much we were bumping and close, it was very, very clean. And I say it every week, I am so glad to be a part of this Weekend Warriors series.
Yeah, just being a part of the Weekend Warriors as well, just from my perspective as a broadcaster, you see some races like this, and even though there's been many Formula V Weekend Warriors broadcasts here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, pretty much all of which I've been a part of, the novelty never wears off of seeing a massive pack like that and a crazy finish like we just saw. Very reminiscent of the last time that you were in the booth for this series, that being Lime Rock season ago. Gonna be heading to a different track, though, that being Zandvoort in 1 week's time. I know Uncle Sam has been calling on your services for the past few weeks, so we haven't been I've been a little bit preoccupied in terms of real-life stuff, but are you going to be there at Zandvoort in 1 week's time? And if so, what are your thoughts heading into that one?
My thoughts heading into that one are, I wish I was there. Unfortunately, Uncle Sam will be calling on my services again next weekend, so I won't be at Zandvoort, unfortunately, but good luck to everybody that's there. And obviously, that track is very, very good as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of great races for the FVs over the past few months, even at Zandvoort, and I'm looking forward to watching it from probably from my airplane while we're waiting on the pilots to come out and fly them.
I mean, that would be a pretty awesome way to take a look at that. So, you can't judge it at all. But Adam, it would have been nice to see you out there on the racetrack. But nevertheless, before we let you go and celebrate a pretty well-earned drive and a pretty well-executed drive when everything is said and done as well, and when you want to give a thanks to or shout-out?
Yeah, obviously to Stevie Ray. You know, none of this would be possible without Stevie. And for me, going from, you know, the broadcaster side and giving it up to Daniel and now being part of the Weekend Warriors as a driver, it really just opens my eyes to how much the amount of work Stevie puts in to make all this possible. And, you know, for what he does for slow motion broadcasting as well, and all the sponsors. Massive shout out to the sponsors. I think Michelle Lynn is sponsoring this one. Thank you so much, Michelle, for doing that. And the sponsors throughout the season for all the Weekend Warriors. And you guys, Ron, Joshua, Daniel, Randall, Mike Braun. There wouldn't be a broadcast if it wasn't for you. So thank you so much. And one more thing before I go. Joshua, good luck tomorrow. I'm not going to be at those races because aforementioned Stevie is sitting in California right now, about to hop on an airplane to head up to Reno. So we'll be watching you from my couch.
Awesome, right on. Well, that'll be great. Yeah, you get to hang out with Stevie for a couple days. That should be awesome. And yes, I will keep it warm for you, Adam, while you're gone for sure. And we'll be missing you while you're not there. Definitely. An amazing race today, man. Way to keep your head together and move up through the pack. Just a stellar drive, brother.
Thanks, guys, and thank you for everything.
Well, thank you, Adam. Well, we're just going to keep you in the commentary booth as we wrap up the show here, because it feels a little bit off to drag the old boss man out of the commentary booth and into the interview waiting area. So we'll just keep you around. We'll have you be here as a spectator for the other Dog and Pony show that is the end of this broadcast. But Josh, Zandvoort in 1 week's time, a lot of momentum based corners around that racetrack, medium to high speed. You also got those banked corners as well, which is going to create a tantalizing prospect. I have a feeling, despite the fact we had a beautiful finish here at Summit Point today, Zandvoort with that long flat out blast of the checkered flag, that may win up in 1 week's time. So what are your thoughts heading into that one?
Yeah, you know, I'd like to say that these tracks are kind of similar, or those two tracks are kind of similar, but really they're only similar kind of in their width and so on, and maybe when they were created. But Zandvoort should be an awesome track. I love Zandvoort. It races really well. It's super tight. I have a feeling we're going to have a pretty similar race that we had here today at Zandvoort as well. It should probably come down to the last lap, and as you said, that bank definitely offers some kind of interesting stuff for people to have to deal with. So really looking forward to it, and we'll see how they can take it on next week.
It may come down to the last lap. It may come down to the last 50 feet. We'll just have to wait and see how that's going to be. And hey, that gives you more of a reason to hit that subscribe button here at Slow Motion Broadcasting so you never miss any of the racing action. And speaking of, got a whole lot of action all the time here at SMB. The Weekend Warriors series always puts on some pretty good shows across all three of the series. Coming up tomorrow is going to be the Super Sunday coverage here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, with the Ray Esports Formula Ford Weekend Warriors run number 7 of that season going to be at Road America off the back of some pretty good races. One week ago at the Charlotte Roval. That's going to be pretty good in those race cars, that despite the fact they may not have the strongest drafting abilities in the world, still puts on a really good show there. Spec Racer Fords, meanwhile, are going to be running at Daytona. That's going to be pretty good. I've covered some races with the Spec Racers in the past, and I will say, poking the stick a little bit with Zippy, Daytona International Speedway is the correct technical name of the track, and I'm going to add that. XSLR going to be running this week at Lernerville, so that's a nice track. I've never been on that one. About dirt racing, but the Legends cars are going to be running around there. Legends cars are pretty awesome as far as I'm concerned. And a brand new adventure in the Ray Esports world going to be coming here on Slow Motion Broadcasting on Wednesday, October the 20th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mazda Miatas and TCRs running the opening race of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. That's Group 1, Round 1 of the first ever season. Going to be at Road Atlanta, and that is going to be a fantastic show. And as we mentioned a couple of moments ago, the Formula Vee is going to be kicking off the month of November here at Slow Motion Broadcasting in style at Zandvoort. So those are all the broadcasts that we have coming up here at SMB. But I think for this broadcast here, for the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors at Summit Point, that will just about do it. So actually, no, I gotta... Let me...
Quick mention of our sister channel here as well. We got some stuff coming up there, Ron. I'll let you cover it.
There we go. Yeah, that was, ooh, boy. Nevertheless, here's the stuff coming up on Pit Road Productions for this upcoming week. On October the 30th, we're going to have some Radical SR10 action at Sebring. Got some Formula Ford action running about a week after that at Alton Park. Some more Radical SR10 action at Montreal, followed by some Formula Fords at this very track, Summit Point. Radical SR10's going to be following the week after that at Donington Park. That gives you a reason to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell over at Pit Road Productions so you never miss any of the action there. But I think now I can actually say it without forgetting anything. That will do it here for today's broadcast of the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors at Summit Point. So for myself, Ron Maunz, and Josh Wilkie working the comms and the cams with me on today's broadcast, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.
I see a Budweiser. Go ahead and hold it up.
Yes. There's
that was
our
the biggest clue.
Yes, right
Doing
there.
it for Dale.
Man, it's so many gimmicks, right? I feel like they're making it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, a lot of people, you get polarizing opinions on DRS.
I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but sometimes the effort, it's all about the boys. You know, like, hey, you
It
know,
is.
life sucks sometimes, and you need
Yes.
the boys.
iRacing kind of always has a tendency to kind of buff
Yes.
the new cars just a little bit. I'm not going to go on record saying it's because they want people to spend money on their platform and buy all the new
Conspiracy
content.
confirmed.
But
Yes.
but
We welcome you all to slow motion for this presentation of the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors Series, and we're about to grab the start in just a few moments' time. It's going to be Megan Overstreet leading them to green with Ladar right alongside. We're waiting for that green flag to come at, and the drivers are now on their way. Some of these drivers may be a little bit more aggressive towards the end of this race, as side by side with Love and DeGassis heading into 5.
Oh, it's close. It's a bit treacherous on the corner. Rex is just seeing Lynn run wide there, Ron.
Down the running order, Love and Brewster, meanwhile, they have been in the tow and they've seen all these drivers try and do their own maneuvers. They definitely have something cooking behind the wheel of those FV race cars. As Montgomery gets that move done, one's running at the back. Well, not actually running right now, I don't believe, as there's a spinner with Ladar.
Oh no.
Oh, and there's contact as well.